A warm welcome to you. Welcome to Business Daily, the first edition of Business Daily for the year 2024. Of course, it is the start of the fiscal year for 2024. And need I say, Happy New Year to you. My name is Chiamaka Enendu, and as usual, we are set to bring you updates and trends in the world of business and finance, as well as development across the Nigerian economy. But first of all, let's take a look at the top stories this morning. Welcome back, and right about now, let us crunch the numbers and see just how the NGX fared at the end of 2023. We did see the NGX sustain the bullish trend, up by 0.36% at 74,773, speaking of the all-share index. And the market cap also hit 40.91 trillion naira, with volume reaching 368.629 million. The value of shares exchanged on the floor of the exchange hit 12.8 billion naira, while the number of deals exchanged hit 6,732 deals. We indeed did see the NGX end the year, the fiscal year for 2023, in the bullish trend. By bullish, I mean the positive trend. It experienced and recorded tremendous growth towards the end of the year. Well, moving away from that now, let's take a look at the top gainers in the last trading day, where we did see Transcorp Hotels emerge as the best performing stock for the year 2023. I believe on that list we did see Transcorp Hotels. On the list, we did see CWG, Champs, and the likes on that list emerging as the best performing stocks for 2023, followed by Learn Africa, which was up by 10.0% at 3.19 a share, and followed closely by Multiverse, up by 9.95% at 18.57. And on the flip side, we did witness about 15 losers. Speaking of the bottom losers from Friday's trading session, where about 15 stocks emerged as the top losers. And leading that list, we did see Sun Assurance down by 5.17%, while FTN Cocoa also emerged on that list, down by 4.52% at 1.48, while NACO also emerged as one of the top losers, down by 4.51% at 25.40. And away from that now, let's take a look at the stocks that recorded some tremendous moves on the floor of the exchange on Friday, speaking about the stocks that recorded, tremendous market move, as we call them. And starting off, we did see Zenith Bank emerge as a top market mover on Friday. About 28.9 million shares were recorded from Zenith Bank on Friday. And closely following Zenith Bank is the Consolidated Hallmark Holdings, which recorded about 26.6 million shares. And in the banking sector, we of course had seen Zenith Bank on this list. Another bank also emerged as one of the top trades or market movers, with Jais Bank being the third top market mover on Friday with 24.6 million shares. And now to the sectoral performance, where we look at the different sectors and just how they fared on Friday. Starting off now, we begin with the NGX banking, where the banking sector ended the day in the bullish trend, up by 1.12%. The NGX insurance, industrial, I beg your pardon, also recorded some growth on Friday, ending the day in the green. By green, I mean in the positive trend, up by 0.01%. However, we did see sectors such as the consumer goods sector and the oil and gas sector end the day in the negative. The consumer goods sector was down by 1.42%, while the NGX oil and gas sector was down by 1.42% as well. So two reds on that table. We also are seeing the NGX insurance sector ended the day up by 2.85%. NGX Insurance there ending the day in the bullish trend. Away from the sectoral performance, let's take a look at major markets across Africa beyond Nigeria. Speaking of the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, the Nairobi Securities Exchange, and the Ghana Stock Exchange, where we see there a sea of greens from Friday's trading, as the Johannesburg Stock Exchange ended the year up by 0.53% at 76,893. And the Ghanaian Stock Exchange, on the other hand, remained unchanged, however, sustaining the positive trend. We're seeing that it ended Friday's trading at 3,130.23, while the Nairobi Stock Exchange ended the year, of course, in the positive as well, up by 0.47% at 92.11. There you have it, the performance of the diverse market across Africa, I beg your pardon. We, of course, did see the Nigerian market, speaking of the Nigeria's NGX, end the year in the positive, and we saw that trickle down to not just the Nigerian market, but diverse markets across Africa. There you have it. We have crunched the numbers from Friday's trading session, and it is a new year. A lot to look forward to as regards the stock exchange markets, not just within Africa but across the world. Of course, today the markets remain closed, but we will be on the lookout to see just how the markets will begin the first trading week of the year. Right about now, let's go on a short break, and when we do return, the program will continue.
This is Africa Update on Trust TV. I am Ayuba. Thanks for joining.
Rest of Africa, stand and make sure that our people understand.
And the story of the OAU can be told and retold. It cannot be denied that it made a contribution to the process of decolonization of the continent in many ways.
Ethiopia is where it is today in no small part because of the tireless efforts of the African Union and the wisdom of its deeply held belief in the principle of African solution to African problems.
The bulk of African countries were under colonial rule in 1945. So they did not take part in the negotiations that established the Bretton Woods institutions.
But the African continent is not included in this South-South relations. And therefore, our objective is to ensure that the Africa Free Trade Agreement is actually implemented. And the BRICS countries, all of them are trading with Africa.
And we know that there are resources in Sudan, especially in Darfur. And that is why Darfur has been on the front burner for a long time.
So Cameroonians are anxious, Cameroonians are impatient, Cameroonians are like, oh, many of the guys are not talking today. You can read it all over the social media.
Egypt has officially declined to accept fleeing Palestinians for fear that the more Palestinians you accept across the border into Egypt, the more trouble there may be for the country in the nearest and farthest future.
Welcome back to Business Daily on Trust TV. President Bola Tinubu has unveiled his key priority areas for the year 2024. This morning, in a nationwide address, he addressed certain areas that he will be focusing on. And this morning, we shall be discussing the economic areas that the president has assured Nigerians that he will be working towards in the year 2024. And joining me now to discuss the key priority areas for Tinubunomics, that is the term for Tinubu economics, is Kevin Fyneface, who is a public good advocate. He is also an energy and security consultant. Thank you for joining us on the program this morning.
My pleasure. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you too. I believe that is how most Nigerians greet on the first of
all over the
year.
world. It's a simple gesticulation we all give to ourselves, more like an encouragement, even though we're still in the same environment.
Are we? I mean, the president has assured us, giving us a number of assurances as regards to 2024. So isn't that some sort of hope, you know? You said we're still in the same environment, but I kind of feel like there's been a few changes that has put some hope in the atmosphere.
Like what?
I mean, the hope he has put out there in the atmosphere, isn't that a change?
Hope is one word we all have, as a form of comfort to look forward to something better. But listening to the president's speech, more like a soundbite thing, more like a continuous soundbite, because if you've been in this country for some time, presidents come and give speeches and we don't see meaningful changes that takes place after the speeches are made. But we also see the president make speeches that immediately had, a tremendous negative impact. When he was inaugurated, it says fuel subsidy is gone. And the next thing we saw was a spiral of challenges and current economic situation we find ourselves in. And so to us to get out of that situation is not just to only speak, but concrete steps need to be taken to ensure that the basic things that are necessary are done, from the low-hanging fruit to the high-hanging fruit, so people get to feel the impact. So if I tell you that I love you and I don't put action to the words, I think it's nothing.
Okay, so let us take a look at some issues he spoke about, that is his key priority areas, because like you rightly stated, if actions are not, actions do not match the words, then there is a lacuna. So we'll begin with the steady power supply promise through power installation project, where he talked about his meeting with the German Chancellor, speaking of Olaf Ove, where he met with him sometime last year, and their discussion around the continuation of the Siemens project that has started in 2018. What are your thoughts on that?
A few years ago, we had actually, I belonged to a group called Nigerians for Super Energy. And one of the things we did was to be able to propose to the government in order to generate about 50,000 megawatts of power as a country. And we divided that to 774 local governments. And that gave us about, each local government will generate about 1,000 plus megawatts of power, which is very possible through distributed energy generation, which means if you go to the north, for instance, Borno, you don't need to use hydro. You can take advantage of the solar, we have with the desert and generate energy for that region. So every region will generate what they need. If you travel from Enugu to Jos, you have more than about 3 trillion tons of coal, not even an ounce used for power, which is an alternative energy that we're supposed to be using. And so why are we not having pico hydros, those small hydros that farmers within some other regions can use to dry their fruits or to process their produce? Why are we not having wind turbines? In the southern region, the gas turbines are supposed to work in effectively generating energy for us. So if every local government or every state generate what they need, what it simply means is that how they need it, it means that they will provide energy that is suitable for that region. So 50,000 megawatts of power is very possible if we do distributed energy generation. And so if the president, is saying, oh, he's going to follow up on the CMS deal, which is now 5 years running now, we've not seen the light of the day. Why are we not seeing the light of the day? I like to ask questions like that rather than just going with the soundbite. We know that the late Chief of Staff, Abba Kyari, spearheaded that project, died in the process, we didn't get to see the light of the day. The challenge has always been not only the bureaucracy that is around the red tape, but it's the political interest also. And you also have this economic interest that coming from those who are the cronies of government officials who are basically suppliers of this other alternative power, either generator or solar energy or others. They wanted the business to continue. And if that's the situation, it means there is a need for a political will to look beyond self-interest or friends' interest or family interest or cronies' interest and see to the collective good of the people. And for the collective good of the people, it simply means the president needs to just marshal out what I would call, a state of emergency in that energy sector. If we do a state of emergency in the energy sector, it means we have cut off the red tape, red tapeism that bedevils that situation. Then you see how things begin to run. We have Nigerian Energy Commission that is supposed to be telling the nation how to go about the type of energy we need, where we need the type of energy we need, proposing standards and all of those things. But they're not as effective as expected. We still see people use incandescent bulbs, which kind of take more energy than is expected. We have the LED bulbs that are coming in the drones without proper standardization, which some of these cases we don't even know that LED bulbs can actually cause cancer and create some psychological effect, but people don't even know that. And so when they start flickering, how it does to your eyes, that's how it also affects your mental state. So we are supposed to be having this kind of standards put in place and ensuring that we also have local producers, manufacturers that can produce this thing within reach, because we actually have the raw materials to be able to produce some of this that we need. So if we have a state of emergency being declared in that sector, not only that, but that's one of the sectors we need to talk about. In the energy sector, then we will begin to see tremendous improvement. It means that the bitumen that is in Ondo belt can be utilized for the purpose for which it's supposed to be utilized, so reducing the cost of dependency on other energy sources that affect cost of production, thereby cost of the produce or the product that is out in the market. So if we have the president declares an emergency in that sector, it means that those in the southern region can focus on what they can generate. Until recently, we have the federal government approving for independent power generation up to a mega and above, so which means states cannot take the initiative. Why will states wait for the federal government to generate power before the state can actually get power? The state can generate their own power now that that sector has been unbundled to suit for this need. So every local government can generate what they need and how they need it without necessarily waiting for national grid. So whatever excess we have, a policy comes to say, okay, throw in your excess to the national grid, because national grid is a national security. So you throw in excess in national grid and they are incentivized for that purpose. So people will begin to generate. Why are we still having a situation where today to bring in batteries that we need energy, but the tax on batteries and solar panels are unbelievable?
I was going to go to taxation because one of the things he mentioned was tax and fiscal policy reforms. In his words, he said, in this new year, we will race against time to ensure that all fiscal and tax policy reforms need to be put in place. There's been a lot of conversation around taxation, but one thing he said over and over again is that Nigeria is ready for and open for business, because one of the, the factors that would not encourage investment is taxation, high taxes, and a multiplicity of taxes. What are your thoughts on that affirmation from the president saying that there's going to be some sort of tax and fiscal policy reforms, to cushion the effect of running businesses in Nigeria?
Well, let's see actions. It's not just the words, like I kept saying. Yes, he knows the situation. We run a pseudo capitalist system of government. I call it pseudo, right? Because you think that, government is for profit or not for profit. There's a social aspect that comes with it. There's a bit of socialism that will run alongside our capitalism that will run as a country. And so what it simply means is that if the president says we have to look at run against time to ensure that all tax policy, fiscal policies are actually taken care of, what are the steps outlined after that statement has been made? What I expect to see, right, is after the president's speech, then the agencies of government responsible for such marshalling out roadmap. Achievable roadmap. So these are the milestones we're going to be achieving. In the first quarter, these are the first things we're going to be seeing. Nigerians should look forward to this, and we'll hold them accountable. I want to see where civil society groups begin to have these documents before time, study them, and question the agencies of government responsible so that they tell us more to our understanding. want to see where the National Heritage Agency will take it upon themselves to educate Nigerians to know where they belong in the new roadmap that is coming in terms of the tax policies and all the things they're doing. So, but the president makes a speech and there is nothing tangible that follows that speech. 12 hours after, it means it's still one of those sound bites.
Well, good thing we're having this conversation, so those in these areas you've spoken about can listen and act just like you rightly stated.
We hope so. But I mean, I've been here for a long time, and I can tell you, it's always been this vicious circle. President makes fantastic speeches, agencies of government responsible. Whenever the president makes a speech, it's almost like a law, because as a president, you saw that when during inauguration, First President was gone, and we had this spiral effect of economic challenges we were having. So the president's speech, there are people who are supposed to be responsible to ensure that once he's speaking, that those things that are necessary, because see, I don't know who are those around the president, that his managers and all of that. There's supposed to be a project management team and a program management team ensuring that before the speeches are made, they have those deliverables put in place so that once the speech is made, the rollouts, the roadmaps. The roadmap is taken, the media takes it, civil society takes it, the public get to understand what is expected, then the entire public, is now involved, and the question to accept and begin to see how they can contribute to the success of that roadmap. Because hope that is not backed up with tangibles oftentimes results to frustration, and then sometimes, sudden death or collapse of a situation. So it's one thing to make a speech, it's another thing to back up your speech, with concrete steps that needed to be taken.
It's not just mere rhetoric, but we see actions backing up this work.
Actions in your roadmap so that we can hold you accountable. Then you promise in the first milestone, the first quarter of the year, you're going to do this. So if by the time we get to April, we didn't say anything, we can call the president or the office of the president to order, look, hey, you promised us this. It's supposed to be serving our interest. The president is supposed to be the chief servant of the nation. Then all of his other aides and ministers and everything are basically the sub-servants of the nation. So, but they are not accountable to us because they've not really gotten into that stage of service delivery mentality to see that position is not superiority, it's actually servanthood.
Indeed. Well, let's take a look at another, very important area that the president did address, speaking of implementation of the new living wage for workers. I mean, since the removal of fuel subsidy on the 1st of May last year, we had seen, the average Nigerian struggle largely, to go by each day. I saw a report recently that talked about the misery index increasing due to the high standard of living and high cost of living. And there are conversations around, the increase of minimum wage from 30,000 naira, which I believe should be music to the ears of the average Nigerian. But what are your thoughts on that?
Inflation is one terrible thing that takes place, more like a conspiracy from the part of the government and the economic drivers to further deplete funds that have already been saved. I'm sure you are aware, maybe you don't know, I don't know if you're aware, current inflation is around 38.something%.
Indeed.
Official rates.
From the National Bureau of Statistics.
But when you get to the markets, it's about 47%. And I'll tell you how that is. I used to buy bread for about 800, but it's no longer 800. It's about 1,200 or 1,400, depending on the type of loaf you're going to buy. So if you put 400 to 800, that is 1,002, take it away to 800, that's about 400 addition to that. And that gives you how many percentage? That is actually the actual inflationary rates that we should be looking at. Tomatoes in the market, onions are like this. So for the president to make a promise to increase the wage of workers, public servants, in quotes, how will those in the private sector cope with it? Will they be having the kind of funds that are necessary to be able to increase the salaries of the workers, or that there will be an enabling environment to ensure that businesses can truly thrive to reduce their cost, their production costs, in order to be able to increase their wage, incentives to workers? Because if your production cost is still very high, there is absolutely no way you can comfortably increase the salaries of workers. I'm an entrepreneur, and I can tell you for a fact and for free that it is not always an easy thing to increase salaries when you don't have increase in revenue. So it's one thing to promise. So the president should have actually considered that aspect first before the removal of fuel subsidy. Secondly, what I think the government needs to actually do is to ensure that there's a robust transport system put in place. So let's see, just only the buses, how do we get to have the roads, motorable as good as possible, then have more public transport system put in place from land to air to sea, especially, and the rails, so that people can look for the alternatives. Only those who want to go on luxury can afford to buy the fuel, but others can actually use public transport system. Then the third thing we also need to do that our healthcare system is, in such a way that it's easy, is affordable and reachable, then it's also efficient. Because if I'm working as a civil servant and I'm supposed to be going to the hospital, I'll be paying, maybe for consultation, I'm paying 10 to 15,000 naira. How much is my salary to get to pay that? Then you go to the market, you need to buy augmentin, if in case that happens, and you're going to spend more than your salary, or up to your amount, almost your salary, about 27 to 30,000 naira to buy one, if you're going to buy the real product, then how do you cope? So it must be affordable. Do we have an insurance system put in place that can, take off this load of the people and that is efficient in that order? Are we also looking at the public schools, that they'll be efficient enough to allow for civil servants to send their kids to those public schools, so that they don't go and begin to find themselves in private schools that will make them to find a way to, cut corners in order to meet up with those demands. Now, don't forget, in this country, we have what I call the class status syndrome, the CSS. Everybody wants to be like the Joneses, and that's because the system is so corrupt and warped that our value system is gone. So the public servant doesn't want to take his kids to the public schools anymore. He wants to go to a private school.
Well, he also mentioned bridging the gap. That's the disparity between the very rich and the very poor. That was one of the areas he said he was working towards ensuring that gap within the rich and poor is bridged in the year 2024.
Milestones. If the presidency drives foreign vehicles, it still imports food from abroad to eat. If it is, the ministers still all enjoy those foreign things and still goes abroad for medical, needs, then it cannot bridge the gap. Because see, when we look at those ahead of us, we want to be like them. So if the president is eating foreign food, it simply means that those below also want to eat foreign food.
Unfortunately, our time is fast spent. I wish we could have gone, deeper, because I'd also like to point out that the president also addressed the issue of food security and affordability, where he said that he was going to ensure constant food supply and that there were plans to cultivate about 500,000 hectares of farmland in the year 2024. But unfortunately, our time is fast spent. Thank you very much, Kevin Fyneface, who is a security and energy consultant. He is also a public good advocate. Thank you for joining us on our first edition of Business Daily for the year.
I just hope the president brings security that's needed along the farm lines so that we can have more food.
Well, fingers crossed. Well, this is the point where we wrap up today's edition of the program. You can catch this conversation on YouTube and join the conversation, and let's discuss the topic of today on social media. My name is Chiamaka Inendu. Thank you for watching, and bye for now.